Good evening, welcome to the studio tonight, and we will, on this program, on this stream, do some more of this pyrographic item. So, yes, I started burning that in there, cooking the wood, definitely better than cooking the books, I think. So we are just going to do bits as the fancy takes me. I think what I might do is look about... I didn't put the lettering in, so I'll leave that one next stream. I think this... What would this be a number down here? 7 maybe? I don't know. If there's anybody watching the stream that knows what the number would be in this shield. It could be a 5, I guess. Could be a 7. Kind of looks like it might be a 5, but it's hidden, of course. But I can do the top of it. So, right. Let's have some heat. But not as much as that. I don't want this black to start with. I think what we'll do is we will do a little bit of marking around this lower frame. Seems like a good idea to me. Yeah, so. Helps if I turn it on. Yeah, okay. It also helps if I choose the right tool, which is what I probably just did wrongly a minute ago, in that I wasn't actually I thought I switched it on and I obviously just switched tools. Alright, more heat. There we go. Change my glasses. That would also help. So I can see what I'm doing. After it sounds, I can see what I'm doing, I just can't see what I'm doing. When you need glasses, it's kind of weird. Something can be clear until you switch glasses and you find it's really clear. So the trick here is, if there is indeed a trick, is to get a consistent colour. I want it darker at this edge, however. Now I can either turn the heat up or I can move a lot slower. I probably will end up turning up the heat. Now there's a strange sort of grabbing as I'm doing this, and I can see it in the way in which it's colouring the wood. Maybe some sort of scratching on the surface, perhaps. So now just fill in the rest of this area. So for anybody watching, what you are watching is something that is commonly known as wood burning, except we don't burn wood. It's pyrography, and so to some extent the name wood burning probably, well, is misnamed. It's misnamed probably for two reasons. One is that when you apply heat to wood like this, it gives off a smell that smells like the wood is burning. In actual fact, it's kind of the other way around. When you set fire to wood, it gives off a smell that smells like this. And the other one is the other reason probably is pyrography means fire writing, if you translate it from its ancient Greek roots of the words that are used. And so fire, burning, that sort of thing. The process is actually more, very much more similar to cooking. It's a bit like cooking wood. And indeed, what we're doing here is very much like you would make toast. So when you cook toast, you heat toast. You don't say toast burning. Well, not unless you leave it in too long. Then you start shouting, toast is burning. But now, it's a similar process. You heat bread, it dries out, and in the process of drying out changes colour, and this is kind of exactly the same process that's going on here. It's changing colour because it's being dried out. So we are effectively toasting or cooking the wood. Now when you set fire to wood, the smell you get is coming from the wood that's near to the flame, which is getting really hot, which is cooking. And it gives off a vapour, which looks like smoke. It's a grey vapour, and that smells like burning wood because you associate that smell with burning wood, but it's kind of the smell of cooking wood. And indeed, if you're in a room where there is hot wood, if you left a piece of wood in a hot piece of wood in a hot car, or you have a room that's got wood panelling that gets sun on it, you get a mild form of the same smell because the wood is sort of slightly being warmed up and slightly being cooked. It gives off a smell, a vapour. I will turn this up a little bit. That's what we're doing here, is we're cooking the wood, causing it to change colour. So this is just the bottom frame. It's got a dark edge on this side, dark edge on this side. The card has been illustrated as though there's a light source up here, roughly where the top of my pyrographic machine is. Yeah, colour balance is off. That's because this is really white wood. And the camera doesn't like it too much. If I adjust the camera so it likes the colour of this wood, it flashes 50 cycles per second. And there's an interaction between the camera and the lighting for no apparent reason, because I have told the camera it's in a there is a light source that's at the UK standard 50 Hz, 50 times per second, and it should be filtering that out. The operative word being should. I really would like to get a better camera. It's a nice camera, doesn't do purples very well, and has the odd problem with other colours, and it does weird things like this. I can't actually light this properly, which is why my hands is looking really rather red. My hand actually isn't that colour, not in real life. Now I kind of want a reasonably consistent colour across the whole of this section, and then just a darker edge down there. It's further away from the light, and therefore is more in shadow. So starting by filling this in, actually I probably want to see a bit darker still, but we'll do it in 2 passes. If I turn the heat up too much, this will change colour really quickly, and it's then a lot harder to control the colour that you want because of that. So currently I'm using an electrically heated tool here. That's what most pyrography is done with these days. There are instances, and you can find them on YouTube, of artists that will use a blowtorch or an acetylene torch to do pyrography, but that really is rather uncommon. You can also use externally heated tools. Very much like old soldering irons used to be externally heated. They used to heat them in either a gas flame or a forge or something similar. Heat them up and then use them to do soldering, while you could have done pyrography with it as well. All pyrography requires is something that's hot, or hot enough to cook the wood, or if that's wood that you do, or whatever the material is that you're applying pyrography to. You can, for example, apply pyrography to paper or to eggshells. Now when you come to electrically heated tools, there tend to be 2 types. What will be called directly heated, which is what this is. The electricity is passing through the very tip of this tool, and the fact that it's passing through the tip causes the tip to heat up. The other type is indirect, and soldering irons are usually indirectly heated. So inside the barrel of the soldering iron or the pyrography tool, which is usually a silver barrel, is a heating element that heats up usually a copper or an iron core on which the bit, soldering iron or the pyrography bit, is sort of sat on top of, and that then transfers the heat to the bit, and then the bit is used to create your pyrography. Now in this particular case, whilst I said the electricity is passing through the tip, it is a safe low voltage of electricity. In this particular machine, I think it's about 1.5 volts. That's one of the 2 batteries you used to get in torches. They used to run at 3 volts. So from that point of view, from the point of view of the electricity, it's safe to touch these contacts at the end. From the point of view of the fact that they're extremely hot, it's not safe. So I'm not going to do it, but if it was cold, I could do so. So if I were to take those two ends off and give it a little bit to cool off, even with it turned on, I'd be quite happy to touch these two metal contacts. Now, whilst this type of tool that I'm using, or type of machine I'm using, tends to be associated with more professional type of pyrographers. I do say tend, it's like everything else. Some people prefer working with one type of tool over another type of tool, so there is no best. Depends on your style and how you like to work, and upon the style of the work that you're actually doing as well. You do get some tools are often better at doing some jobs than another. Or they make it more easier to do. This, for example, style of tool I can hold near the end, so it's a lot better to use it in a pencil style. Good evening, Incredible Wolfie. I gathered that. I have a little number on the stream deck which tells me every so often how many people are watching. And it said there's been people out there for a little bit. Yeah, watch the caps. Depends on what people say. The caps, the number of times today, I work on a Unix system, and the number of times I've written things in caps today, because all the parameters that I was using were capital letters. The commands aren't, the capitals are. The commands aren't, the parameters are. And the number of times I've mixed them up. So how is world domination going today? Well, like you say, you made it so I won't forget now. You managed to find a way around your Kickstarter problem. I think I want this darker. We'll add a bit more heat. Which will make it a little bit easier. Once I've got some colouring down, turning up the heat is not as dramatic a change, so I don't know if the amount of heat that has to be applied is to change colours is particularly linear, but it just feels easier to control once there is a colour down there to actually turn the heat up. And it doesn't seem to be as uncontrolled as working with that heat level to start with. I'm getting a bit impatient with this. Shouldn't do, because impatience is what causes things to go wrong. Yeah, different areas of this wood are reacting differently to the amount of heat. So that's something I've got to watch if I want a consistent colour. I have to be careful about how much heat I apply, so it varies according to where you are on the board. If you just want straight black and white, it's dead easy. It's when you want variations like this, which I don't want to be as dark as black, but I want it to be darker than it is now. Already told you antivirus stuff, but I'm not interested in that. Go away. Right, let's make this. I don't want it quite as dark as that, at least. Well, maybe not quite, but not far off. I now have a lovely smell of hot wood. As I mentioned, I kind of quite like to see what applying pyrography to something like eucalyptus wood would be like. I just wonder what sort of smell you get off the wood as it heats up and you know, starts cooking. Concentrating here on trying to keep a straight line, or straight edge to the line. Don't want it really waving over all over the place too much. So as I've kind of said before, this is a little bit like painting, or almost like spreading paint for some reason. If you think that there was paint on the underneath of this tool, and I'm kind of spreading it out, it almost feels like that, and sometimes actually looks like that. When the cooking process of wood like this is a process of drying it out, and it's the sap that's in the cells which is being dried out, and potentially it's the sap that's being cooked, which is providing this golden brown colour as well. And sometimes it sits on the surface, and actually doing this you can actually see the tool pushing a thick liquid, a gummy liquid across the surface, which is that sap which is being cooked. A bit like maple syrup, I guess, which gets cooked. Okay, this colour is probably about okay, and I will just fill in this edge, and then we will move elsewhere, probably to the other side of this bit of the frame, and do the same thing on the other side. So it's rather quiet in here this evening. It's kind of like It's Wednesday, isn't it? Has everybody sort of gone out for the night? Is that why Twitch is so quiet? So all of those of you who are not watching, why not? Or is there some particular tournament going on somewhere that I wouldn't know about, and everybody's watching that tonight? Junior the pussycat is laid on the floor just down here. If he starts moving around, I'll pick him up and let everybody take a look. But at the moment, he's sort of quite settled, so I shall leave him where he is for the moment. Okay, that's one edge of that frame. Now down this side of down this frame here, I've got to sort of just down the edge do more or less the same thing as I've done over there, just not as thick. Well, yes, not as thick. Taking care here. As I mentioned before, there's no erase, there's no undo. These marks effectively are permanent. The only way I can get rid of these marks is physically to scrape them off, or use sandpaper, which is the same sort of idea, scrape them off. But then that will have the effect of changing the surface texture, and means that you will be able to see the fact that I've erased it forevermore. It becomes extremely visible. And so erasing isn't, making any attempt to erase is not usually a good idea. And that's hot. So when I'm there's quite a lot of heat comes off this. As you imagine, it's at a few hundred degrees, and the hot air is rising off it. In certain positions like that, the hot air is rising up over my thumb here, which has got a bit of glue on it, and it's like holding your finger over a candle. You can only do it for so long. I'm going to do now is spin this around and put a sharper edge on this side here. And take the opportunity at this point in time just to darken this line down as well. Now I may have to come back over here and make it darker. It really depends on what colours the wood ends up around it, because with pyrography it's all about contrast between two adjacent pieces. That's what lets you see the image and the picture, and potentially allows your eyes or your brain to make up colours as well, which can be a really weird phenomenon. When I finish this, you will see certain parts of the wood look white, and the wood isn't white. Will not be applying any sort of paint to it to make it white, but it will look white just because of the shades and the colours of the things around it. It's quite an interesting sort of phenomenon sometimes. That's a bit like that internet controversy not so long ago about the dress. Different people saw the dress as different colours because of contrasts and the way in which their eyes and brains work. Now when doing things like this, being able to create or keep a smooth line is important. It looks better. Ow! Sometimes when you're doing some of this work you can only do it for so long because the way you need to hold the tool means that it heats your fingers or thumbs. And after a while that gets a bit much. Hopefully that won't happen tonight, but you can see I'm now holding the pen slightly differently to try to avoid that effect. It's not as easy to control like this, but I've had practice. Actually, Wolfie, whilst you're still lurking, what would the number be in the bottom shield on this particular card? Because of course this deck limit is covering it up, and in hindsight, of course, I shouldn't have included it, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. 5. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was a 5 or a 7. It kind of looked like a 5. Thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll put the top part of the 5 in at some point. Oh, okay, the shield, I guess. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, shield armor. You keep trying to educate me on these things. Well, you can definitely say, I know more about these cards now than I did 2 days ago. Not a lot more, but some more. You think I was thinking loads of games have AI, and an old game you played had smart AI that counted the troops you had, so you were smart. Yeah. The thing about AIs though, they can learn really fast. To the point that games that do use AIs often limit their ability to learn, because otherwise they'd beat the player every time. And of course the player will get rather tired of that and not play the game. Yeah, I've got to be a bit careful here because I want to leave a white line down there. The white line being almost a highlight, so the light that's shining on the top of this shape is kind of reflecting off that top, making it look white. Okay, now I want a thicker, this is kind of like a shadow edge, so I kind of want a thicker edge just up here because of the way that the light would be shining on this. What you did is made a slash army of one kind, for example playing, so the enemy could only make fighters and anti-airtank. Then SM troops over and over and over. Historically they only had these troops, so it made tense. Well, in war, winning is the whole point. It doesn't usually matter how you've done it, because it's the victors that write the things. But I can see. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it takes, I've watched, I am watching a playthrough of Dark Souls. I don't know whether it's Dark Souls 2, 3 or whichever one it is. And, yeah, they die a lot. You've got to be really good to not die. But, I mean, that's kind of the point. I mean, I think the game goes out of its way specifically to kill you. And they make it not very easy to do. That's part of the challenge of those sorts of games, I think. It's one of the reasons why I won't. Well, it's one of the reasons why I kind of don't play that sort of game. Because I don't mind retrying things up to a point, but then it gets irritating. And at that point I stopped playing anyway, so I haven't played Dark Souls, and it sort of is a pity because there's a lot to explore in Dark Souls, and I love games that you have to explore in. Yeah, you lose all your souls. You can, well, I don't know about 2. In some of the ones you can recover them, but you don't recover as many, do you? But is it half or something? But yeah, I mean, that's the point, isn't it? You are encouraged not to die. I mean, to some extent, it sort of almost encourages you to be very, very cautious about how you go about it. And I mean, these games where it doesn't matter if you die, there's no consequences to dying, then you get people that just sort of do the run and gun. They run in, whether it's a sword or a gun or whatever, hit something. If they die, we'll just keep doing it until whatever it is they're attacking dies or gives up in boredom. And yeah, it's one way of completing the game, but it's not what they was intended. And yeah, to some, well, to a lot of developers and people, that's kind of a bit like a cheating sort of thing. So they put these mechanics in, like you lose HP if you die, purely to make you think twice about taking that sort of approach where it doesn't matter if I die, I just resurrect and carry on again. Well, good. I was brought up, if you like, on the old text adventure games, where we still have better pictures than anything that's out there today. In fact, to some extent, that's the original adventure games. They were text. They kind of encouraged me to do art, but I was never very good at it. I'm good and always was good at art, but I was never very good at imaginary art, by which I mean thinking of a picture and then putting that picture down. I can look at a scene, I can paint from a scene, I can alter that, what I see on here. I can go outside the window here and do a landscape, and there's a lot of trees there, and I can put them in, take them out, put fences in, that sort of thing. But I kind of have to see what it is I'm looking at. With things like the adventure games, you always had in your mind an image of certain things. In the original Zork, there's a bit like a frozen waterfall. I suppose it's stalactites and stalagmites that have come in, and there's a room in which it describes that sort of thing, and I could see that sort of image in my mind, but my imagination, I imagined what the room looked like, and yet I always wanted to be able to draw that and draw what I could see from these games, the actual rooms that I could see in my imagination. I've never been able to do it. And it's kind of, I always wanted to, and it's kind of, I won't say it's a regret because I've kind of tried, but it's always been a disappointment that I've not been able to do that. But I kind of love that. I mean, in real life, if I go into a castle and there's a dark corridor, on holiday we often went into a lot of ruined castles, and you'd have a I don't know, for example, a floor that starts to slope down. So there's obviously some sort of a tunnel, but then it will be filled with cannonballs or rubble, and something's down there, but I want to know what's down there. Or there's a dark tunnel, and I want to know what's at the other end of it. I always want to know that's there. I'm not always, and it's kind of weird. I'm not interested in doing caving or anything like that. I'm not claustrophobic, but I certainly would not be able to go through some of the presses that these people go through while the underwater diving. I would more explore caves just by walking rather than crawling and things. But it's always that exploring thing. What's round that corner? Where does that lead to? Or that's That's the sort of thing that's always interested me, and games that do allow that are games that do interest me. Which is why the original Zork games, for example, were like that, largely about exploring. One sort of games like Resident Evil, or certainly the original Resident Evils, whilst you had to kill things, were kind of like that as well. It was explore, find your way around the puzzles and what have you. And I don't, Doom, I guess, is another one. The original Doom was a bit like that as well. You were killing things, but you had to explore and find things, and that's one of the games that I always enjoyed playing. Well, it's not so much about grinding. I mean, grinding is sort of digging, mining to find diamonds or whatever it is. I'm not games that grind just for the sake of it. I personally get get sick of fairly quickly, and I just don't bother. Games that are challenging, so you have to work at it, which might mean doing a lot of mining, for example. Yes, there's a purpose to what you do, and so I don't mind those so much. Now, off the top of my head, I can't think of examples of either, but Ow. This pen's getting hot again. Yeah, that's right. It's really quiet tonight, Wolfie. Let's do a round there then, so roughly. That's going to go diagonally up towards there. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't know if the rest of Twitch is. Wednesdays often do seem to be quite quiet, but tonight just seems to be even more so. There we go, that's starting to work. Yeah, I've got a top edge along there, so thank you very much, that's kind of you to say so. This is one of those things where you also have to think ahead and remember things like I've got to leave a blank space because I can't make white. Okay. Yeah, I can't. Once I've committed, I can't make white, so I can't easily go back over something. And that reminds me. That picture of Theo. A completely random thought just came to my mind then. You can make a white sometimes with once it's done scraping off some of the surface, but you only ever do that as the final act. And one of the things that you do that sort of thing for is, for example, animal whiskers, which are white. So rather than trying to avoid a very tiny element, which would be the whiskers, which is really hard to do, what you do is you don't avoid it, you just lay the underlying colour down, and then when you've finished you scrape off quite a thin line, which then looks like a white whisker. And then the thought suddenly crossed my mind, I don't remember doing that when I did Theo the kitten in Pyrography. And I just had a look, because that's the picture, not the cat. He's sat over there, and no, there isn't any whiskers on him. So I may actually have to add some whiskers to Theo the cat. So first part about here is lay down an undercurl. An undercoat is what I was trying to say, and then it came out as undercolour down here. And then I can overlay this with shading and shadowing to give me the effect I'm after. So that should start to look three-dimensional, a bit like it does on the card itself. There is some shadowing around here, so we will be adding in some shadowing and darkening some of these areas down. Because this banner is casting a shadow. It can be irritating when in your mind you've got a song that you've heard and you can't actually, you can sort of hear it in your head, but you can't actually sort of hear it enough to sort of hum it or distinguish it in any way. But you know that if you hear it, you'll recognise it. They're the worst ones to try and find out what they are, because it could be anything. You've just got this, I know that sound in my head, but I can't actually hear it. So if that was what you were feeling, good luck. You managed to find it, which is good. Oh yeah, but you had to remember the lyrics to do that. I'm talking about that point where you sort of half remember the lyrics but you don't quite, and you half remember the tune but you don't quite, and you can half hear it but you can't quite. Lady Zara sometimes tries a trick with me and it doesn't work on me. It works on Lady Zara, and that will be, it's a variation on the don't think of a pink elephant. And of course at this point in time you're thinking about a pink elephant. But there are certain songs which are quite catchy, or where she will try and sing a little bit of a really catchy tune that normally you can't forget, and it bothers you for ages, or something like the Funky Chicken or something like this. Some of these really silly things which are annoying, and she tries that sometimes to try and sort of get these songs or things into my brain. But I find it quite easy just to dismiss that sort of thing, and so I have fun, because when she tries to do that to me, I go, I forget it really quickly, but then she can't, because she remembered it trying to get me to be bothered by it. It was quite fun sometimes. Yeah, with I think with the iPhone and possibly with the Android, there are apps where if you can sort of hum or make a representation of the tune, it will try to identify it. It's so you do have some tools that will do that. Apparently, the ones they can be quite good, depending on just how good you are able to sort of hum or otherwise musically represent what you can hear. It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to have the instruments, of course, but they can be quite good at it. Apparently, never tried it. Yeah. I just have a tendency to go, oh, I'll remember it sometime, and forget about it. I think they work on sort of a variant of things like Google's Content ID, song ID thing. Oh, yeah, that's terrible when you get that, when you have to find it. So I'm lucky I can just go up there. I don't get that compulsion. Ow. It's getting a bit hot. These particular tools are really nice in that they don't actually get that hot very often, but from time to time the direct heating is. The rest of this tool is quite cool. It's not cold, but it's quite cool. That's one of the nice things about these. They've got a hollow core and a lot of heat comes up and through the top here, which is away from my hand, and this foam rubber pad does stop me getting a lot of heat because the heat is conducted up these metal rods and actually into the body. So with some tools, some manufacturers, I have seen reports of things like people can't use a tool for more than a certain period of time because the body gets too hot to hold. That's one thing that you don't get with this particular thing. You just get the direct heating on your fingers, and then that's gets to be a bit painful. Now I think this particular bit here, this frame, is actually meant to be stone. which is nice because it means if I get a variation in colour texture, it's meant to be stone, and stone has variations in colour and texture, so I don't have to be as super consistent as I might otherwise have to be, say, on a metal, something that was metal. Okay, now that sort of shading hopefully will start to make more sense once we put the banner in and it starts to, you know, look as though we are we've got something shading this. May do is bring it, a user, once this is complete, just do a little bit more of the highlighting just around some of these places here with the scalpel, just to highlight, pull out the highlights a bit more, and then again maybe I won't bother. This is a light colour around here, so just turn the heat down a bit, which just makes it a bit easier to get lighter colours. And this pen's getting hot again. Or rather, the pen isn't, my thumb is. Ow. That doesn't look very symmetrical. Let's bring that up a little bit more. Yeah, that's alright. And then we go down this edge here. And this is probably the lightest edge of this. That probably means this wants to go a bit darker actually, but we will work with it at the moment, and we can always darken it again afterwards. The thing with pyrography is you can always make things darker, to a point that is, but you can't easily make them lighter. That's not bad. Let's extend that dark area up a little bit more though. Now the hardest bit next is going to be to fill in that area, because that wants a colour on it. But according to the card, it's got a gold band around there as well, or goldish sort of band, and that could be fun to try and get in. So what we probably want is an overall colour, something in this sort of region here, all over, and then darken the centre very slightly. But I think what we will do is leave that bit for another day. I don't want to do that tonight. In fact, I think what we'll do is, it's a quiet night tonight. I think, Wolfie, if you're still around, I will leave it for tonight. I'll upload some more videos to YouTube, and we'll continue with this tomorrow night, and do that whole bottom colouring around there. Possibly even some in this section at the bottom. So that maybe, I think we'll get the bottom end of the card, or a large proportion of the bottom end of the card done. I've been on Discord for a long time. I just yeah, I'm on Discord, but I can't actually remember what the ID number is. You can always send a message here on Twitch. Yeah. As I was saying, I think we'll leave doing the large area, because it's easier if I can do it in one go, and I don't want to start that now, because we'll be due to finish in a few minutes. It's easier to make a consistent colour if I can do it all in one go, rather than try and come back. So we'll fill in that whole area, possibly down here with this overlay of the deck limit, and tomorrow night I think that'll be the focus, which will probably take most of the time, because it's quite a relatively large area to do before we move elsewhere, move up the board. Seems like a good idea now, I think, to finish this bottom end, or at least, you know, do a large amount of the bottom end and then work my way up. Well, having said which, I may do this bottom end and then start coming down from the top, but we shall see. Okay, I'll get a cup of tea after the stream and then I will have a quick look at Discord. I tend not to load it because I don't like a lot of applications who just sit in the background loaded all the time. So at one time you couldn't stop Discord running. Every time you started it, it would self-load every time. At least now they do let you turn that off, and I do. I like things to run when I want them to run, not when they want to run. So I'll have a look on for that invite. Sorry, yeah, the other two you sent me whilst Dad was in bed, asleep overnight, and they only lasted 4 hours. And by the time I'd seen them the next evening, they'd expired. Yeah. But then again, they disrupt, in my case, disrupt the broadcasts or things like that. And, there are other means of communications as well. Ah dear. There are times when we are just, well, I don't know. I'm an old man. That's maybe what it is. But there are times when we're just too contactable. And I like to control when I'm contactable, because that way, if I don't want to talk to somebody, I'm not around. Yes, yeah. Actually, it sits like that most of the time. But you know what I mean. It's still, yes, there is streamer mode. It is enabled, and it does other things like streaming mode is quite useful, because then if you accidentally show things, it hides stuff. It won't let you show some of your account information, for example, with streaming mode on. It hides those items, which is obviously quite useful, so you don't accidentally show something you didn't intend to. But no, I'm just a person that kind of likes to control when I am contactable. It's things like. There are people at work who carry their work mobile with them at home, and it is just a telephone, and you know, they're contactable for work at 9 o'clock at night. It's kind of like, I don't work at 9 o'clock at night, you know, I work 9 till 5 or whatever, but so many hours a week. And you know, even friends, it's kind of like, I don't want you trying to contact me at 11 o'clock at night just because I happen to have the computer on and stuff like that. So that's why I do it. Yeah, they are also solvable. I solve them by turning the software off. You know? Just different attitudes to it, and I know, you know, you young people, you mind less about these things, and I grew up when I grew up in the time when it was only just usual to have a telephone in the house. It used to be in the hall, always in the hall, never in any other room. And used to have a special stand for it usually, and there was one telephone in the house, and telephone numbers were 4 digits long. So yeah, I grew up in that sort of arena where instant communications just weren't. You know, the only way you had instant communications with somebody is somebody you were standing next to, and you know, I've seen it go from there, you know, mobile phones in cars, and to mobile phones that were, well, even then they were described as handbag portables, but they were great big things. That was mainly the battery pack, but great big things with a handset on top that you almost need it 2 hands to hold. To the true hand portables, to the things that we've got these days. And you know, you go down to the supermarket and you see people that are checking Facebook whilst they're walking around the supermarket, not actually looking where they're going. And of course, as a driver, when you see people doing that on the side of the road, it gets a real bit scary sometimes. But you know, they like it. I only half get it. Just me. You know, other people. It's not. It isn't an age thing. It's just the way people just see things differently. Anyway, it's now 9 o'clock. Actually, I'm turning that off before I forget. Otherwise, that'll be on all night, and a hot pyrographic tools lying around is not a good idea. I think we will avoid most of the adverts tonight. I don't know how many people are currently watching. If you are watching, you're at the end of the stream, I'm afraid. We've actually done more than I expected. It does seem, you know, pyrography takes a lot longer than you expect. I would run through all the adverts. URLs at the bottom. Lots of URLs, all do different things. Their uses are obvious. There's 2 buttons at the top. Their uses are obvious as well. I'm not going to go through the whole spiel tonight. I shall hand you over to the Twitch adverts. And it's 10 o'clock there. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock here. You're an hour different for us now. I get an hour now to do a few bits and pieces, like upload videos before I go get some sleep. And so tomorrow, I should be on tomorrow night, which is Thursday. Start somewhere between 7 PM and 8 PM. That's in GMT, UTC time, it's UK time. Other time zones will differ according to the difference in time zones. Yeah, okay, I'm weak. That's fine. I like sleep. I don't get enough of it, but I do like sleep. And I shall see everyone hopefully on tomorrow night's stream. An Incredible Wolfie, thank you for dropping in, and bye for now. See you next time.